Hello, everyone. Welcome to a show that doesn't really have a name yet. We're still trying to figure that out. But my name is Michelle Kinney. If you don't know me, I am co-founder of the Seneca Project, along with my good friend Tara Setmeyer and our friend Julie Roginski here. She is the author of Salty Politics. I know, girl, I've had a day. Salty Politics on Substack. She also is the co-host of Over It and Coffee and Conversation with Jojo, Tara, myself on Saturdays. So welcome, Julie. How are you doing?
I'm good. Hey, you guys, we're going to do this. We're going to try to do this every Monday at 7:30. We need a name. If anybody's got any good ideas, just shoot them over. We don't,
please.
We're searching for names. We're looking for good names. We're going to brand this thing, but we just decided to do a couple of these. They went really well. People showed up. We were super psyched about that. Thank you. And so I hope we're streaming to Substack right now. We're trying to figure out how to do that. So
yeah.
If anybody hears from Substack, thank you so much for joining us as well. Michelle, this show, as we've talked about before, is not so much about politics because we spent a lot of time talking about that. It's actually much more about culture.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something, I think it was on Coffee and Conversation on Saturday, or maybe Over It on Wednesday. I can't remember. But we're talking about Brad Pitt, who, P.S., I am the only woman of a certain age who never thought Brad Pitt was that attractive. I don't get it. I know. I'm like the only person on earth. My best friend in college was so obsessed with him that I think at the age of 50 something, she might still have a poster on her wall of Brad Pitt from whatever movie Montana he did, the name of which escapes me at the moment.
River Runs Through It. River Runs Through It. I actually like that movie.
Yeah, it was a good movie, but not my cup of tea. But he's especially not my cup of tea, Michelle, because of what you said. And I think you have a clip you want to play. It's not just us, right? Like, don't you have a clip that you want to play?
Oh, I was supposed to grab it and I didn't.
You did. Okay. Well, why don't you just tell people what we're complaining about here?
Yeah. So, one of the things that's really actually been bothering me, and I think it really ties into what's going on in the country, I would say really in the world, but I would, more so this country, just because that's what we experience on the day to day, just about how the value of women and women's safety feels not at an all-time low, but certainly in my lifetime a low. And as that ties into the fact that we have elected a adjudicated rapist, we have sitting in the White House, which the voters of the United States knew full well that he was. And it didn't really seem to bother them, not to mention his credible accusations of sexual assault. And it got me thinking about just our culture and our culture of celebrity in America. And people like Brad Pitt, who has had a bit of a, how do I say this? A rehabilitation from something that I think most Americans don't even know happened. He's had this movie that's been promoted quite a bit on Apple TV lately. It's about the F1 racing thing. And I think his production company or something worked on it, Plan B. He's got a new young girlfriend and he brings her everywhere. And like, he's got this fresh new face, which he's had definitely worked on lately, which, fine, whatever. I don't care about that. It's more having to do with the fact that, and I'm going to pull this article up from Vulture. This ran earlier, I think in June. And it's called Brad Pitt is Fooling You. And the story behind this is that it says, if you need a reminder, court documents allege that during a trip on their private plane, this is him and his wife, Angelina Jolie at the time, he threw his wife against the wall, shook her, and poured alcohol on her while she was trying to sleep. When their children tried to defend their mother, Brad Pitt physically abused one of their children. And 5 days later, after the flight, Angelina Jolie would file for divorce. And it was only finalized this past December in 2024. It also says here, in the years since, Pitt won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor in his 2020 role in Quentin Tarantino's film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. He's had, a lot of films since then. He's doing pretty well. And, this is part of a PR campaign that is paid for. These things happen all the time. Actors, famous people, CEOs, anybody with money and power will hire a crisis communications firm or publicist.
That's what I do for a living, so I can tell you exactly how it's done. I can do that in a second.
Right.
Go ahead.
Right. Well, no, and it's funny because I think it was a couple years ago, or maybe it was a year ago, doesn't matter, but he was sitting in the front row, I think, for the Golden Globes, and everybody who was presenting or whatever would look down, and he was right there. And of course, ear to ear grins, and he's looking fresh faced, and oh my God, Brad Pitt's here. Oh my God, Brad Pitt's here. That is all design. That's by design. All of it is by design. And I think that it's something that we're not talking about. So if he can get away with this, if he can skirt the truth about what's going on in his own personal life and his character in order to stay in the good graces of the American public, imagine what the people in power are able to do. And I think it just speaks to a larger problem about the safety and well-being of women in this country. It feels like the Me Too movement kind of had a moment, and then there's a backlash of just nobody cares. I mean, I don't know, Julie. This is what you do.
I do two things, right? One is we do crisis comms. We can talk about how you do something like this from a just organic. It's not organic, but it's really astroturfed, but how it looks organic. Right. And the second is the Me Too movement. I just actually did a webinar today with my co-founder of Lift Our Voices, which is the organization I run, Gretchen Carlson, and a few other people, one of whom is Zelda Perkins, who was the first woman to come out publicly against Harvey Weinstein and break her NDA. And the name of our webinar was Me Too 2.0. It's not just dead; it's stronger than ever. And I really believe that. It's the media that's constantly saying the Me Too movement's over. We're passing legislation. England, the UK just became the first country in the world, well, at least in the English-speaking world, to ban non-disclosure agreements. Like, tremendous,
I didn't know that. That's amazing.
Yeah, literally just this week, thanks to Zelda Perkins.
Wow.
And all the stuff that we're doing at the state level. But there is something to what you said, Michelle, which is that, look, Brad Pitt kind of has the same thing that I think Trump has to some extent. Oh, it's just Brad Pitt. It's stoner Brad Pitt, right? It's nice guy Brad Pitt. Everybody loved Brad Pitt. Brad Pitt was the kind of fun stoner.
Yeah, just like earthy guy. He was married to Jennifer Aniston, America's sweetheart. You know what I mean?
He dated everybody, Gwyneth Paltrow. I mean, like everybody, he was that guy, right? And a good actor. And I think everybody's like, he wasn't particularly controversial ever. He's not Tom Cruise, right? He doesn't have the whole Scientology thing hanging over him.
Right. He doesn't seem like a cuckoo person. You know what I mean? He doesn't seem crazy.
Yeah. He was just, he's just that guy, right? He's the guy from Thelma and Louise. Or I guess you're right, BJG from Dallas. I think you're right. But the point is, like, so you kind of give allowances, whereas Angelina Jolie was this really intense cuckoo bird, drank vials of blood, kind of weirdo making out with her brother on stage, her whole Billy Bob
right. Well, right. And her eccentric behavior as a young woman in the public sphere just has been used against her, essentially.
Right. And then remember, she was the other woman. She broke up with Jennifer Aniston. Brad Pitt had walk on that one, if you recall. And she was like the bad girl who kind of broke up that marriage. Brad Pitt was an innocent bystander. Like, I don't understand what's going on there. But the point is, I have no idea what this man is like in real life. All I know is that none of his children speak to him, which is okay. I understand there's parental alienation. I understand that sometimes very much unfairly, kids don't speak to their parents after a divorce. Inexcusable. But he did admit, or he at least conceded that, or did not dispute the fact that he got violent on this plane. And that seems to be okay. That seems to be like, let's just kind of ignore that. And it's not, I don't mean to pick on Brad Pitt, but he's just the latest example of that. Like, you had that with Johnny Depp, and you had that with Amber Heard. And I really think it's time for that to be revisited. And I think it will be in the next few years, but it's certainly time for that to be revisited, because I remember you saw it happen, and you saw it happen because you saw how social media was weaponized against Amber Heard, where I had friends who would consider them guys who would consider themselves huge feminists
Right.
And
Right.
women friends who are like, she sounds a little kooky. She sounds a little wacky. Has anybody checked out Johnny Depp ever?
Right.
But that's
Right.
okay. We all know that's
Right.
crazy,
He's
Johnny
just a
Depp.
little, right. He's just a little kooky. We
Just a little
should
kooky.
accept it.
Edward Scissorhands with his kooky weirdo stuff, and Alex, Alice in Wonderland and his, Jack
Right.
Sparrow. That's of course
Right.
he's kooky. Whereas she was held up to some crazy standard to the point where her career is over.
Right.
He is living in Spain, I think. And the jury, which I don't think was sequestered, and by the way, I keep saying my husband is a criminal defense lawyer. He will tell you to go ahead and tell the jury not to read anything. They go home and Google that shit all day long. Like, it's kind of a joke when you tell them not to, like,
right. In this day and age, I just don't know. Like, that's very hard to do.
So, of course, what this was the court of public opinion, but also a court of law where the jury, I'm sure part of this was to influence the jury that poor Johnny Depp was being unfairly maligned. And here's this like vixen who's coming out there and she's just using Johnny Depp to get famous. And, and Johnny Depp's just this kooky guy. He's, Brad Pitt's a stoner and Johnny Depp's this kooky guy. And that's just guys, what does that sound like? What does that sound like?
This locker room. Guys will be guys. Locker room.
Yeah.
Talk,
And, men being men. And to me, it's so pernicious because it's pernicious to the point, and I don't know if you have this clip, but Amber Heard attempts to do an interview as soon as this is over to, I guess, rehabilitate herself. And she goes on, I think at the time, the #1 morning show, or if not the #1 morning show, certainly Neck and Neck, which is the Today Show. Yeah. And she sits with Savannah Guthrie, who I'm sure pursued her ad infinitum to have this interview with her. And she does this interview with her. Do you have a clip of that for a second?
I do. Let me see if I can play it because I didn't have a chance to load it in, but I'm going to see if I can do like a screen share or something.
It's okay. It's not really relevant. Just take my word for it. She does this interview with Amber Heard. And in the midst of this, we come to find out that, her husband, Michael Feldman, Savannah Guthrie's husband.
Yeah, I have this article here. I just think it's so wild. Like, so guys, I didn't know about this and Julie told me about it. And this is from 2022. And this is an article headline from Newsweek that says Amber Heard said, sit down with Savannah Guthrie, husband consulted for Depp, and it's,
What? And by the way, it's not that I don't think men and women can have or husbands and wives can have completely different careers. Of course they can.
Right.
Of course they can. But when you're sitting down and you're talking and interviewing somebody about the most traumatic thing that has ever happened to them, and your husband was part of the trauma that was caused to this woman because he was part of, he was a consultant for Depp's legal team. He's not a
What happened? Is it me or is it you, Julie? I don't know. If you're in the chat, can you let me know? I can't tell if it's me or if it's Julie that's frozen. Another plot twist. Oh, Julie froze. Okay, thank you. So yeah, let me just put this back up here for now. I can see and hear Michelle. Okay, great. Poor Julie. I don't know if I should just text her. Hold on. She just dropped off. So let me just read a little bit more of this. So it says, Amber Heard has given her first interview, like Julie said. NBC announced on Monday that Savannah Guthrie would do the interview. And the thing that's crazy is it does say here that Savannah Guthrie, she said ahead of the interview, this is who my husband is. He worked on this, blah, 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 blah. And, I can't imagine being Amber Heard and wanting to walk into this interview. That's kind of crazy to me. But like Julie was saying, like, my husband he works in banking. He's an attorney. I'd like to think that I could make judgments or ask questions um, that are, you know, impartial. But I don't know, because I think some of that stuff kind of sneaks in. It sneaks into your subconscious, and I think you can have some implicit bias that you aren't even aware that you have. Says Amber is a little crazy anyway. I don't, Nina, I don't know. I don't think so. And I think the whole point of this conversation is to talk about why we prejudge women in these situations. I wish I knew where Julie was here. In the meantime, you know what I would love to play for you guys? Because Julie was talking about Phil Murphy and her situation with Phil Murphy, and I think it was the 8-year anniversary of that event that she went through with Phil Murphy that kicked off, a pretty ugly back and forth. They put out a video, and I'm going to play that for you.
And I got him elected. And on that campaign, Governor Murphy, and I got him elected. And on that campaign, a bunch of young women came to me in the midst of that election and said, now that you're suing Fox News, because this was all going on while I was consulting for him, we realize that you're kind of an advocate of women. We want to tell you about the horrible sexual harassment that's happening on this campaign. And they told me these really bad stories. I went to Governor Murphy and I said, this has to stop. And he fired me within 48 hours. It's the only job I've ever been fired from. His lawyers from Perkins Coie, which I know is in the news now, immediately sent me a reminder that I was bound by a very, very stringent NDA. It was so stringent, we used it as an example during the Speak Out Act of what really bad NDAs look like.
This is what non-disclosure agreements do. They create a culture of silence that protects predators.
I kind of call it Murphy's Law, even though it's called the Speak Out Act, because that's who it was inspired by. We also have 3 laws on the books in New Jersey, California, and Washington State that go much further and get rid of NDAs for all toxic workplace issues. We're working on similar legislation in Connecticut and New York State right now. At the state level, we believe we can go much further in banning NDAs for all toxic workplace issues.
Yay, Julie. Welcome back. Welcome back. What happened?
I think my internet went out. We have to reset it. Sorry.
It was no, that's okay. I for a second there, because I'm in a place that I don't normally do the show, so I didn't know if it was my internet or you. And luckily, somebody came into the chat and told me. So, anyways, I was just showing your video here.
Yes. Well, look, I mean, I don't know where you guys lost me, but Mike Feldman, who's Savannah Guthrie's husband, had a little bit of a hand in Governor Murphy's stuff as well.
Right.
But
somebody's asking, was there a disclaimer on the show about
Savannah's husband? I think she kind of mentioned it, like, oh yeah, my husband.
At the beginning of their interview, that she was like, my husband had consulted for Johnny Depp, and then that was kind of the end of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but let me explain to you. She said he consulted for the legal team, but let me explain to you what that means, because I do this. It means that you typically in these kinds of cases don't sign a contract directly with the clients. You sign a contract with the lawyer because you want to have attorney-client privilege. You want to be in the code. Right. So you work for the law firm and you're part of the litigation team, and you're not part of, and so that nobody can subpoena your communication with the client. So therefore, nobody was subpoenaing Savannah Guthrie's husband's communication with Johnny Depp. They were subpoenaing Mike Feldman's, and they couldn't subpoena Mike Feldman's communication with the law firm. So for her to say, oh yeah, and he didn't work with me on this interview, the reason for the interview was because this poor woman had been so maligned by what his firm had done to her. And for anybody here who's like, well, she was a little nutty, she's a little crazy anyway.
Right. Yeah. Somebody had mentioned that. Yeah.
Why do you think she's a little crazy? You think she's a little crazy because you were told repeatedly that she was a little crazy on the internet, and there were troll farms and bots and others who, I guarantee you, it's called astroturfing in my business.
Right.
It's not real. It's not like, and then it's exactly what you do in politics, right? It's exactly what the Russians did when they try to influence, or the Chinese.
Oh, absolutely. So if you guys know about the situation between actress Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, who was the actor and director of this film that they made together, she had sued him for, I believe, sexual harassment on set. And as this was coming out, he worked with his team. And I mean, it was deep on the internet, on Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. They had hired a similar apparatus to create an online narrative through bots to discredit her and to talk her like, I mean, it was crazy. This stuff. And people were like, do I even like her? And I'm like, where is this coming from? You know what I mean?
My closest friend, who is, I love her. She's fantastic. Same person who loves Johnny Depp, by the way. Mm-hmm. She's not political. She's not whatever. She lives in California, and but she, you know, like the rest of us, reads a lot of gossip rags. And she called me up and she's like, I don't know about Blake Lively. And I was like, what is it about Blake? I was like, what is it about Blake Lively that you don't like? Well, you know, she's this, she's that, I was like, oh my, like, and somebody, again, I do this for a living. So I'm like, you don't understand. This is the kind of manipulation that happens.
Right.
You know, and I kind of blame Amber Heard's team for putting her on the Today Show. She could have easily gone on Good Morning America.
Well, that's what I was saying when you stepped out, because for me, I mean, if I was Amber Heard, I would not go into any environment that felt even a little bit hostile, even if she seems nice or if she says that she's going to be impartial or whatever. I mean, I just don't know that I could trust anybody in a situation like that after having been through that kind of trauma and abuse. You know what I mean?
On the other hand, you have to go out there because you're an actress and your bread and butter is having, you know, a Q rating, whatever they're called. And so an EQ rating. And so you kind of have to go out there and try to do as much publicity to rehabilitate your image as possible. What better way to do it than on the Today Show?
Right. And just an FYI, I have your Substack open and I'm watching the chat on the Substack on my phone. So if anybody has any questions or anything, I can't put it up on screen here, but I can read it. So I just want to thank everybody who's joining on Julie's Substack. And people are saying, I don't know who she is. Amber Heard. How would you describe Amber Heard?
Amber Heard, she was an actress. I think she will still be an actress, although I don't think she's been in anything. She was married to Johnny Depp. Yeah. And if you remember, a few years ago, it was like the biggest news of the year that she and Johnny Depp had this whole thing. And Robert, you're saying this, just look at the way she went to try to wreck Depp's life. Of course she's crazy, but how does she try to ruin Johnny Depp's life? Well, how do you know she tried to ruin Johnny Depp's life?
Right. And where are those stories coming from? Because people are like, oh, well, I read it here. I read it. Right. But who's pitching those stories? Who is paying publicists to pitch those stories? Comms people. I mean, that's the whole thing, is there is an entire industry of people, especially in Hollywood. I mean, it happens for CEOs and all kinds of powerful people, but specifically in the celebrity culture that we live in, there is a whole cottage industry of this kind of stuff happening, and it's only going to get worse for people. And you really, I mean, if we look at it through the lens of how it happens with politics now as well, it's all the same. It's all the same machine. It's just a different strategy or a different person, you know, or like a different end goal. And the stuff too with the Justin Baldoni stuff, when I was watching the online stuff happen there, I mean, I was watching Perez Hilton stuff online, just like a lot of influencer culture, which again, like influencers are paid. And so I'm sure a lot of these people were paid to plant stories about Blake Lively being difficult, for being crazy, for being bitchy on set, for being this, that, and her and her husband, they're this. I mean, here's the thing. Every woman who's watching this right now, including the two of us, have been, powerful people who we've worked for or otherwise have tried to discredit us by saying we're crazy, we're difficult, we're emotional. Emotional's the big one. All of these things, anything to discredit a woman, because they know that bias is baked in, that people are just not going to believe us outright. And that's the thing that drives me nuts about this Epstein thing too, other than the fact that there is this kind of, the tentacles of the story kind of go far and wide and crazy. And, and I think it's the salaciousness of the story. I think on top of, the deep suspicions that people have had about Donald Trump for so long, but beyond that, I mean, here's the thing. We don't need a list. We know that there's a list. because the women have told us there is one. And the women have been telling us for years now. And it's just, people just aren't listening, or they don't want to believe.
You know, it's interesting that you say this, because I spent a lot of today writing an op-ed for Lift Our Voices for my nonprofit, which we're pitching, but I will give you a preview.
Oh, yeah.
Of what's in it. And it's very interesting that we're all talking about release the Epstein files. We want to know who's on the list. We want to do this. We want to do that. Nobody's demanding that these women come forward.
Right.
Like, they know who they were trafficked to.
Right.
I am positive that if you were a 14 or 15-year-old girl and you were trafficked to a celebrity of, I don't even want to say Trump, anybody, right? I mean, you know who they are. And nobody's demanding that these women come forward, which I think is actually kind of a step in the right direction, because we finally understand how difficult it is for people to come forward. We're not demanding that you expose your entire life to fame and ridicule. On the other hand, it's totally understandable why these women are not coming forward. And they're not coming forward because of exactly what we're talking about. Because who are you if you're one of these women? You are a girl. You're a woman now, but you were a girl back then, who might have come from a broken home, who might have done drugs, who might have slept with boys before you were old enough to really do that.
Right.
I mean, who knows, right? What kind of broken, you might have been molested by your dad or your uncle or your stepdad or whoever. And all of that is going to be dredged up.
Yep.
By the
they're going to find everything about you.
They probably already have.
Right.
Because that's the kind of person that Jeffrey Epstein would try to recruit, and Ghislaine Maxwell would try to recruit. They would try to recruit. They wouldn't recruit
vulnerable young
women.
Like
they weren't going to recruit me with, an intact family and a father and a mother who knew exactly where I was at all hours of the day and night when I was, high school. They were going to recruit girls who were vulnerable, who needed money, and who they thought were easy marks.
Right.
And I think,
listen, do you remember the Donald Trump, there's recording of him saying this, and I'm paraphrasing, something like, why is it that like the broken women, the young broken girls, or the ones with family issues or daddy issues are the best in bed? Why is that? Why is that?
I knew a guy once. It's not just Donald Trump. I knew a guy once who literally told me, like, as we were hanging out having a beer, he wasn't hitting on me. He was just like a ha-ha guy.
Right.
He goes, I always try, and he was a really good looking guy. And he said, I always try to hook up with women who have some sort of disability. And I, like, 1 foot shorter than the other, one blah. And I was like, what are you talking? That's not even really a disability, but I was like, what are you talking about? He goes, they just try harder. And I thought that was such an asshole thing to say.
That's ugly. That's some ugly shit.
Ugly, manipulative, awful thing to say. Just awful thing to say. But I also remember when I was working at Fox, and I can't talk about Rod Rails, but I can talk about Bill O'Reilly. A makeup artist pulled me aside and she said, don't ever be alone with Bill O'Reilly. And I said, okay, why? And she kind of said, oh, you know what? You shouldn't even worry about it too. You're too tough. He wouldn't worry, he wouldn't be into you. And I was like, interesting.
Disgusting.
Okay. Disgusting. So like they prey on the vulnerable.
Yeah.
Men. I'm not saying
they see that. Well, it's like in abusers in general, right? Even people who are abusers in the workplace, whether it be, professional or emotional abuse, sexual harassment, anything like that, they look for the people who are the most vulnerable, whether that be just the most trusting people, whether that be the people they can say, oh, they're the very empathetic people, they're an easy mark. They can see those targets from a mile away. And abusers, whether even they know it or not, they're picking them out. And I mean, they just goes to show, again, I just put this thing up. Look what happened to Christine Blasey Ford. I mean, she spoke up and she was torn to shreds. Yes,
100%,
exactly.
100%.
Exactly. Exactly. Oh yeah. So Robert Carr said Donald Trump was talking about Lindsay Lohan. That's right. That's right. I remember that. That's right. That was the
Yeah.
context in which he was talking about her. Who is it? Lizzie Lohan is a young woman, and at the time that he said that, she was very young, very very young. And I just want to read some of the comments here on your Substack. The world does not respect women, Arlene. Down with the patriarchy. Yes, please. Yes, women should be believed. Trump has had the same reputation virtually his whole life. He is 79 years old, over a half a century. Yeah, I mean, and here we are. And I actually found the video from that creator.
Okay.
I hope that this is the right one because I couldn't play it while I was sending it over to my laptop, but I'm just going to play it and hopefully it's the right one.
About me, I don't F with Brad Pitt. And I have the receipts to back it up because you know I've been watching this for years. And before you try to defend them, step into the time machine because I've got screenshots that you are going to die for. Fantastic piece, by the way, in Vulture. Angelica Jade Bastian writes about the fact that Brad Pitt is fooling all of us. And if you've been hanging around this page for a while, you know I've been saying that for years now. Brad Pitt, in my opinion, created a skincare line to distract us from the fact that he is an abuser. Brad Pitt's skincare line was announced on August 17th, 2022. I can find you the original screenshot if you want. And yes, they changed the name. And yes, I'm wearing the same sweatshirt. Just realized that. But this is announced on August 17th, 2022. You know what else comes out on August 17th, 2022? This Rolling Stone article. August 17th, 2022. And you know what happens in this? They get the FBI records that show that Brad Pitt abused his family on that flight. What a coincidence that on the same day that probably the most damaging article about you comes out, you also have your Instagram launch for your skincare line. That's a PR distraction, you abusive POS. Also, why does Brad Pitt have a cashmere line? And why, when they advertise it, do they not even show the cashmere? And why does everything else on the website, which, like, by the way, $1,500 for this linen jacket in this economy? Again, where is the cashmere? But here's the thing. This website is so crappy. Why does this look like the men's section of the Kardashian Closet website? This actually looks better. I love the men's section of the Kardashian Closet website because it's just all the Christmas gifts that Rob never bothered to pick up. And also the cast-offs from when he went through his Gordon's Fisherman phase. History has a way of showing us the right side. And I will bet you anything that 20 years from now, every conversation that will be around Brad Pitt will be, wow, we really got it wrong on Angelina Jolie. Oh, we should have listened to his own children who want nothing to do with him. Oh, we should have thought more about the PR distractions he was pulling. But no, he gets to go on and peddle cashmere with Dax Shepard, which, by the way, never forget the time that Dax Shepard basically on his podcast was telling people yeah, I totally think that you would definitely take advantage of someone if they were passed out, to his co-host, and really tried to make it sound like it was normal and acceptable. But he also interviews abusers, so there you go, Dax Shepard.
So that's one of many videos that she did about.
Where's the lie?
Yeah, and that's Meredith. I believe Meredith Lynch is her name. She's fantastic. Follow her on Instagram, TikTok. She's awesome. She does not care, and she holds everyone's feet to the fire. Everyone, and she's been harassing Eva Longoria for quite some time about her relationship with Jeff Bezos' new wife. But anyways, that's a different conversation.
Please,
yeah,
the whole please.
But anyways, she's done a whole bunch of videos about this, and it's just it's like a trickle up and a trickle down with all of this stuff. And it's just I just want to bring this back up here again. Hold on. Let me see. Yes, continuing to work with the crisis management publicist Matthew Hiltzik. That is the crisis comms person he was working with, who has represented Johnny Depp and whose proteges went on to represent Justin Baldoni and work in Trump's White House. So what does that tell you? Is that there's a playbook. There's always a playbook. And it's really hard. I just want to be just totally frank here. It is really hard to be a woman in the world as it is, and continue to watch bad people, bad men continue to get away with it. And last time we talked about this Brad Pitt thing, there was a woman in the comments that was, afterward, are we not supposed to watch Brad Pitt's movies now? This is ridiculous. And blah, blah. And I'm like, listen, do whatever you want. I don't really care. It's more, I don't care about that. Right. I care more about the example that this sets. It's abuse culture. And it's, we're living in a time where everything is really ugly and no one really seems to care about other people. And the way that women are treated in a society is a pretty good indicator for where the country is going as a whole.
I think when you ask that kind of question, like, are we not allowed to watch Brad Pitt movies now? You do what, you do what you want to do. I will not watch Tom Cruise movies. I did not see Top Gun 2. I did not see Mission Impossible. I know. And I don't blame you for doing it. I'm just telling you my decision. I will not, because I used to have friends. He has now since passed away, who was a pretty high ranking Scientologist. And I heard about the awful abuse that was visited upon.
Have you seen Going Clear on HBO? It's a 2-part document. Oh my God, girl.
I read the book.
You should go. If anybody here wants a couple, I think there's 2 episodes in this docuseries. It's called Going Clear. It's Alex Gibney, who is a fantastic documentarian. It is mind-blowing. I had a friend in college, 2 brothers actually, who I went to college with. We were all in the same program, and their parents were Scientologists, but they weren't. So they had been kind of shielded from the worst parts of all of that. And I remember one of them posting on Facebook after it aired, being like, I had no idea. I had no idea my parents were part of this. And I'm like, Elizabeth Moss was born in.
I love Elizabeth Moss. I love her. I love Mad Men. I love everything she's been in. But the point is, like, you make certain decisions in life, and the power of the purse is vast.
Yep.
And, so you make a decision. You can go ahead and you can watch Brad Pitt's movies. You can go ahead and watch Tom Cruise's movies. You can go ahead and watch Johnny Depp's movies. I don't begrudge you. Go for it.
Listen, movie industry too, it's, employs a lot of people. And And
what pisses me off about the movie industry is nobody was happier than these people when Weinstein went down, because they're like, oh, we took care of that problem. And all of these people God, I'm in this business, so I know profit world, but all of these people showing up with their little Time's Up ribbons and whatever the hell they were all wearing that the Golden Globes one year, and all of them, and Meryl Streep, God bless. I had no idea. This woman has done, I don't know how many Harvey Weinstein movies. I had no idea this was happening. Really, Meryl Streep? Because I'm not in the industry. I don't know anything about it. But I used to live in downtown New York City. I used to live in the West Village, and I used to live 2 or 3 blocks away from Harvey Weinstein's very, 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 very nice townhouse. I don't want to even pretend that we're in the same. We happen to be the same zip code, but we're not really in the same zip code. Yeah. Shitty apartment. He had this incredible townhouse, but I used to hang out at a restaurant where he used to hold court. I don't even work in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I was not shocked about this.
No.
For Meryl Streep to be like, what?
Listen.
What?
And he was also just notoriously an asshole. Like, on top of it. It's not like he was a nice guy and then was doing this on the side. Like, he was notoriously an asshole. When I had a friend, one of my best friends, actually, she used to work at Brother Jimmy's in New York City. If you know Brother Jimmy's, it's a barbecue restaurant. And there was like a bunch of locations, like super fun kind of party atmosphere. I used to go there all the time. And it was, I think this was the Lexington Avenue location. And Harvey Weinstein came in and sat down. And somebody had given him a menu or whatever. The place was like super packed, busy. Everybody's running around, like, whatever the case, he didn't feel like he was getting service that was fast enough. And he grabbed my friend by the arm and yanked her and was like, you listen here. And like started screaming at her. And she was like, okay. And then she just walked away. And I know the next day he called the owner of the restaurant, complained, and he was like, there was some girl, and she just was like, played dumb about the whole thing. But this is the kind of behavior that he exhibited all the time. And, for people to say that they don't know Like, listen, we all hear stuff about people, and sometimes it's like, what am I supposed to do? What if I speak out? What am I supposed to do? It didn't happen to me. What am I supposed to do? Not work? And I know that was probably an excuse for a lot of people, but the Meryl Streeps and the Gwyneth Paltrows of the world did have a lot of power. If they had said something, I think people would have listened to them. And to bring it back to Brad Pitt, which is kind of crazy, is that Gwyneth Paltrow was someone who was approached by Harvey Weinstein. And at the time, she was very young. And at the time, Brad Pitt was dating Gwyneth Paltrow. And Brad Pitt, he had a lot of star power at the time. He stuck up for her. And he never bothered her again. And she went on to continue having a great career. I'm sure part of that's her, her mother is Blythe Danner. Her dad was Bruce Paltrow. I believe Steven Spielberg or something was her godfather. So, I mean, she was born into Hollywood royalty, but, it didn't matter to him how connected she was. He still saw her just as a young, vulnerable girl that he could take advantage of.
He destroyed a lot of careers. Ashley Judd's.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
So many people who were riding high, and then all of a sudden you didn't see them again. And he would do exactly what these guys do, which is he would go out there and say, oh, she's difficult. Don't work with her.
Yeah. Or she's difficult. A bitch. Like she doesn't play well or whatever the case.
And of course, if you are looking to put somebody on a movie set for 9 months or 10 months on a shoot somewhere in Australia, you're like, do I really want to be with this bitch for
right? Is she gonna right? And it's like, is she gonna go with the flow and speak up?
And that's how you do it. You don't have to even say anything else, right? And if it's coming from Harvey Weinstein, well,
right,
you know what? Most powerful man in Hollywood. And so it still happens. It still happens. I mean, Michelle, you showed, and that was very nice of you. While I was, my internet went down as I sit here in the middle of New York City. But you showed that video with Governor Murphy. That was me 8 years ago going to somebody who was not even governor yet and basically saying to him that I'm hearing from all these women that they're being mistreated by the men on this campaign. And I said that as somebody who sat in the back room with all these men. I hired half those men.
Right.
I approached those men first to tell them to cut it out. And finally, when it didn't help anymore or it didn't work, I approached him. And then literally within 48 hours, he fired me, which was what I tell you, like the biggest shock in the world. But that wasn't the worst part of it. The worst part of it was that I had an NDA. I couldn't talk about what happened to me, but they could.
Right.
And what they said about me was atrocious.
Which is just, it should not be allowed. That should not be allowed.
Well, it's not anymore. I changed the law. But that's what I had to do. I literally had to pass a law, Michelle. I had to pass a law. How fucked up, sorry, Dad, if you're watching, how fucked up is that?
Sorry, Julie's dad.
But I have to pass a federal law and a state law in New Jersey to make sure that what happened there would not happen to anybody else.
I'm reading I just want to read a comment here from Substack from Politics and Aphrodisiacs. Says, I had no idea Murphy was like that. Just shows that they can have a fake front. Yeah.
It's not a fake front. I mean, Politics and Aphrodisiacs, I thank you so much. She's such a great, or he is such a great person who always watches our show. So thank you.
Yeah.
It's not that he has a front. It's that he put a gag order out on everybody so that you literally could not say anything. And for years, I couldn't say anything. And for years, I would get, I mean, I literally had a subpoena. Like, I think I told you the story, but this one young woman got allegedly, I have to say allegedly because it never went to trial, got raped on that campaign. She called me up asking me for help. And immediately, Murphy's lawyers were like, and you know who those lawyers are? I'll give you an example. Jonathan Burkon was one of those lawyers. He was a Perkins Coie, and now he's like this big celebrated guy in the Democratic Party doing all of these things with Mark.
Wait.
He works for Mark Elias. Do you know him?
Yeah.
Oh, you know John Burkon? Well, that's who did it.
I did not know that.
Oh, yes. Oh,
We'll talk in the car. We'll talk in the car. Holy shit.
We can talk right now. Oh, yes. Yes. So
Always.
every time I see Mark Elias, I got to wonder, Mark Elias, why are you having guys like that work for you?
I'm just like in total shock. I'm in total shock about that.
Yeah. Literally within moments of Murphy firing me, John Burkon went to the media and started talking about awful things about me. Like I had all these conflicts and that's why they fired me. And I couldn't say anything. Could not say anything. Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I'm just like,
and all I wish
headlights right now
is that I think he has a daughter.
Yeah.
I hope that what happened to me never happens to his daughter. I hope that a John Burkon never crosses his daughter's path. Yeah. But I'm saying all this in the context, this is not really about me. I'm saying this in the context of why are these men getting away with this? Because of stuff like this. Because they are allowed to silence.
Right. If the most powerful people in the country can get away with this, and I bring this, one of Cuomo's victims settled today, I think for like $450,000. And if people don't know about Andrew Cuomo now, he had many, many victims who came forward. Who knows how many who didn't come forward. And after he resigned, he was able to use New York State tax dollar money to essentially bury these women accusers, victims, in legal fees and legal bills. Lindsey Boylan, I would say, is probably the first, or if not the most vocal of all of them. Luckily, I think she is of means, so she's able to kind of keep up with these with the legal bills, and she's talked about that publicly on Twitter. But he was able to use New York State tax dollar money to subpoena the gynecological records of one of his victims. And, I like, listen, I was one of the people back in the COVID times, anytime that Andrew Cuomo, I'll just say this, anytime Andrew Cuomo was challenged in a primary, I always voted for the person who was challenging him, but I always showed up in the general to vote for him. And then all this stuff came out about him. And listen, I thought in a time where we had no leadership whatsoever from the United States government, during a time when literally, Julie, thousands of people were dying in our neighborhood.
I remember, of course.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of people. And, if you don't live in New York, this is a hard thing to try to describe to someone. It's like you look around you and your neighbors are dying and you wonder if you're going to be next. And there was one person getting up every morning and giving a press conference about this. So naturally, we all gravitate towards that leadership, right? But then after the fact, we learn all of the horribleness that was going on behind closed doors, and it's like the fact now that he's going to be on the back. Like,
let me just say this, because I just pulled up this New York Times story.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, she settled for $450,000. A third of that is going to go to her lawyer.
Yeah, I was wondering if the state was going to pay for her legal fees, or if that's not even baked in to the settlement.
Probably not. And then taxes are going to take the other 50%. So she's really walking out of there with nothing. But it doesn't matter because it's not about the money. The part, maybe it is for her, but it shouldn't be about the money. What is sick about this, there's two things that are sick about this. One, which I don't know if people understand. So first of all, she probably had to sign an NDA to get the settlement under New York. Under New York law, there's no NDAs unless the survivor requests an NDA, which means that your lawyer is going to go to you and say you're not going to get anything unless you request an NDA. But what she definitely has in here, I don't know about an NDA, but what she definitely has in here is a no rehire provision. She cannot work for the state of New York until 2030 because she has a no rehire provision. Now, let me ask you, Michelle Kinney, why is she being punished? Why can't she get her? I'm not suggesting she wants to work for the state of New York, but why is the state of New York saying she can't even apply for a job with the executive chamber, which is the governor's office? Not that I have no idea whether she's interested in working there, but why not? Kathy Hochul, who is the governor of New York, why wouldn't you say to her, of course, if you want to come work here, apply like anybody else? You can work for the executive chamber. I can work for the executive chamber. Everybody on this chat can work with the executive chamber. Everybody watching can apply for a job with the executive chamber through 2030, except this woman. Why? Why? And this happens all the time with settlements.
Yeah.
all the time. Now, I cannot talk to you about my Fox settlement because I still have an NDA, but I can tell you this. Hypothetically, I can never apply for a job with Fox News. Why not? What did I do wrong? Meanwhile, Bill O'Reilly probably can.
Well, look, he's being platformed on News
He's being
Nation. He has
platformed
his
on
own
HBO.
show. I mean, the man doesn't seem to know what day or year he's living in.
And then the other thing here that's so gross. I just want to read from this. So Rita Glavin, who is Andrew Cuomo's lawyer in all these matters and whatever. I don't even blame the lawyers because this is what they do. Although actually I do blame the lawyers because I blame John Burkon, but which we'll get to later. But this is what she said. So in a statement, lawyers for Mr. Cuomo, Rita Glavin and Teresa Tsarscoma called Ms. Camizo's case a nuisance suit. Quote, the settlement is not a vindication, they added, is capitulation to avoid the truth. Oh my God. So yes, I get it. Andrew Cuomo wanted to keep torturing these women, and Kathy Hochul settled this lawsuit because she's tired of the state paying for this stuff. But
because he was never going to stop. That's the thing, is Andrew Cuomo's just like Trump. He's just like him. He's just like him, with that New York arrogance and just like power, like coming from a family that everybody knows, and I can do whatever I want. And then, you know, his brother's got a stick up his ass about whatever, and he goes on TV and he, you know, he can't stop from keeping, you know, sharing his opinion about everything all the time, and he's had his own problems. So it's just, you know, and that's, and like going, like, let's look at another case, right? The P. Diddy case that just came out. They had video, they have all kinds of things showing what had happened to the woman in the case against P. Diddy. And a jury of 12 people, 8 of them men, 4 of them women, said beyond a reasonable doubt, they thought, you know, he was innocent. And and she had to, I mean, she participated in some of the things that were happening and the things that he was perpetrating on other people. And again, that will all be used against you. If you do not have in their eyes some sort of perfect reaction to everything or perfect behavior in their eyes, like everything will be used against you to discredit you. And it won't matter, like, because women are just not believed in the same way that men are.
You could have the most perfect background, right? I did with Murphy.
Yeah.
30-year stellar career, got every single Democrat in that state elected statewide. Not one whose campaign I did not work on and did not get elected. And no skeletons in my closet, nothing, literally. And it doesn't matter because they will twist. They'll just make it up. And then if you're gagged, listen, if I wanted to go out there right now and say Michelle Kinney is a 6 foot tall blonde, right? Which you are not. Neither am I. But if I wanted to go out there and say Michelle Kinney is a 6 foot tall blonde, and Michelle Kinney was not allowed to talk about the fact that she is not a 6 foot tall blonde, what do you think people are going to believe? Right. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Arlene in the Substack chat saying male colleagues would come up behind me and start kissing my neck and touching my chest in the workplace. She said, I lived in New York City in the 1980s, and this is how women were treated.
Yeah. And they're still treated that way in many places.
Yeah.
Because we still have gag orders so that you can't even tell anybody this is happening to you.
Right.
A third of all workers sign them on the first day of work.
Yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. To get hired, you have to sign these things. And see, NDAs really should be about proprietary information about the company. I mean, if you work for Coca-Cola, right, you shouldn't be able to then go work for Pepsi and give away trade secrets, right? Yep. That's the intellectual property part of this. That's why NDAs should exist. It shouldn't be to silence people who have experienced, whether it be, you know, discrimination, misogyny, sexual harassment, gender discrimination, race discrimination, verbal abuse, whatever the case. These things should not be used to silence you. And I have been told many times by many people, it's like, if you were to report anything from an employer, employer's bad behavior, good luck,
My
because
NDA,
no one will want to hire you again.
oh, my NDA was so strict and stringent. It was the way Burkon wrote that NDA. It was so, and which I signed on the first day of my consulting gig.
I can't even get over this. Arlene said she worked on Wall Street. Yeah, that's not terribly surprising.
Oh my God, Arlene. I represent, so you have no idea how many women I represent on Wall Street.
Yeah.
You have
my husband worked on Wall Street. The bank that he worked for moved off of Wall Street, so location wise, but he works at a bank and he does banking regulatory law. My husband is like one of the nicest, sweetest, kindest.
I can vouch for that.
And I say to him all the time, because he runs an intern program and all this other stuff. And I'm like, just always be mindful of the women around you, whether it be the lawyers or the women in the business or the traders or like anybody like this. I was like, because they are trying to climb their way upwards in an environment that was not built for them. And women have had to squeeze themselves into these places. And the odds are stacked against us, and he's always like, yeah, and he tries, he had to hear it though. You know what I mean? These aren't things that people just like automatically know. You either have to see it for yourself or be told,
And by the way, MJ, you said reporting anything to HR is usually a loss. I hate to say that HR is not your friend.
If your place even has a functioning HR department, I'll just say that. Because some small places don't have functioning HR departments, and that's just the reality.
Tom Burkon was also the HR guy in the Murphy campaign. I can keep going about this, Michelle. I can just blow your mind every single day on this. We could have a whole show just about him. But anyway, yeah. But HR is not your friend.
God, no. They're there to protect the company, not 100%. You.
And if you have a forced arbitration clause, they're going to stick you straight into that secret chamber of forced arbitration. You are screwed. Yeah, you will get nothing.
So before I have another question for you. This Haba5 says, I volunteer at a rape crisis center and really appreciate these conversations you guys have and the work you do, Julie. Only 37% of adult survivors report sexual assault and 12% of child victims. I mean, and here we are again, like the whole world is talking about Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein. And who are the victims here? They're women and they're girls. They're children.
They're women now, but they were
children at the time. And some of them didn't survive this. And that's the other part of this. And Donald Trump is planning a trip to the UK soon. I did see that they're putting up posters and things, pictures of Donald Trump and Epstein everywhere, which I'm like, yes.
Oh,
but this is, but like, again, Prince Andrew, one of the Epstein clients, basically just like, oh, it's fine. No big deal.
He's still doing the walk to church for the royal family.
Right. Exactly. Like, it's like nothing matters. Nothing matters. And that's and I said this the other day on one of our shows. There are so many things that we're all having to fight for literally all the time because the entire house is on fire. And it feels like women, we are always fighting everyone else's battles. And we're always showing up for people. Not everybody. White women at large kind of suck. But, women have a tendency, even in our own lives, put the children first, our husbands first, our communities, our neighbors first. We take care, we're caretakers. And there's a reason why the Women's March didn't happen until 2016. Like that there was such a show and such a display of support for women during that period of time because people knew. And I think that's why even now his reelection feels even, I don't know, there was just like this hush after the election. I don't know if you felt that because it just felt like, we had put out American Girl at Seneca Project, which went super viral. We knew that the Obamas had seen it and Steven Spielberg's, it went crazy, crazy, crazy viral. And it felt like, how could she lose? How could she lose? Not again. And after she did, it just felt like this hush of like, yeah, women, you lost a human right, but oh well. I guess you don't matter as much as you thought you did. And I genuinely thought women were going to decide this election. And maybe we did. Maybe just enough of us didn't show up.
We did. And enough of us did not show up. Enough of us voted the wrong way. Enough of us were just, I think, not mindful of what matters. And I know that when you're worried about inflation or you're worried about putting food on the table, that all of this seems really obscure, but it's not. Everything is connected. Yeah. And the part that I think people just don't understand, or maybe they do, I don't want to be condescending. I think the part that people need to maybe viscerally feel more is that they just, all this economic thing about putting food on the table, it's connected to this.
Yeah.
Because this could happen to you tomorrow. You are at the mercy of somebody who decides what all your life is not being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yep.
And one day you're going to be the wrong place at the wrong time, and you're going to work for the wrong person. And that person is going to demand things of you that you may not want to give, or will ask you to make moral compromises that you will not want to make.
Yep.
And then you will not have a job.
Right.
And if you have a no rehire provision and you work at a big box store in the middle of Arkansas, and that is the only employer for 50 miles around, and you can't work for them because you have a no rehire provision, like we just talked about with Brittany Comisano, except that this is just state of New York, which is not, or the executive chamber in the state of New York, which is not as big of a deal. But let's assume that you're the biggest employer within a 100-mile radius says, you know what? You can't, let's say, here's your settlement, here's a couple of bucks. You can't ever work here again, which happens all the time. Where do you go? Where do you go? Do you pick up, and you're a single mom, do you pick up your kid and you move somewhere else? If your entire family structure and your caregiving and support structure has been in this small town for the last 5 generations.
Right. And that's the thing too, is like, and to bring this back to politics also, is like, I wish people knew how much this happens in politics and how a lot of people don't speak up, because it's a small little industry and everybody knows each other, or like within a degree. And if you speak out against one campaign, who's to say that, they won't hire you as a consultant ever again? I mean, Julie is a Democratic consultant. I mean, she had a hard time getting work for a long time.
I had to take 8 years off. I mean, I'm back because Murphy's out, but I had to take 8 years off. I had to literally pass federal laws. I had to, I went from earning a really good living to really struggling for a few years after a 30-year career. If that could happen to me in my mid-40s, which is how old I was when this all happened. Yeah. Just imagine what you feel like if you're a 22 or 25-year-old young woman.
Right.
Who didn't have the backup that I did from the media because I'd known them, who didn't have the intestinal fortitude because I had the career to say, you know what, I guess I'm going to tighten my belt a little bit but I'll survive. I mean, all of that is really hard. So I just want people to know this is not really about us, and it's not really about politics. I guess we really started talking about Brad Pitt and Johnny Depp.
Yeah.
Be very careful about what you think about people. I mean, look at this.
Yeah, this isn't Jezebel.
What is life? Not your own.
Right. Jezebel is kind of a women-centered publication. I really enjoy their writing, actually. The headline here says, Brad Pitt suggests life, not your own actions, throw these struggles at you. It says, I'm just wondering if being accused of getting drunk and physically abusing your ex-wife and one of your children is an example of life throwing a struggle at you. And this was just published a couple weeks ago. And they're talking about the F1 movie. He was on Dax Shepard's podcast. And it says the only 2 women who've left him. So, okay, hint, it's not Angelina Jolie, his ex-wife, who accused him of physically abusing her and at least one of their 6 children, none of whom appeared to speak to him anymore. And like, it says Jolie first filed for divorce in 2016, days after, like the other article said in Vulture, days after Pitt got drunk on a plane and allegedly got abusive toward Jolie and their son Maddox when he tried to intervene. The divorce turned even more conscientious in 2021 when Jolie sold her shares of a chateau to a Russian oligarch instead of Pitt, which he sued her over. It's just, listen, and Angelina Jolie, again, comes from a very powerful family. I mean, she no longer speaks to her father, who is like a huge Trump guy. I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
nothing surprises me really anymore. But one of the questions I wanted, if in case people don't know what forced arbitration is, I was wondering if you could just
let me say really
explain
quickly.
that.
Yeah, and then we could wrap it up. So
Yeah.
just so you know, you may not know this, and I'm going to give you a statistic that's going to blow your mind even more than what Michelle's mind was blown a few minutes ago. But by last year, by 2024, 82% of all American workers were bound by forced arbitration.
Mm-hmm.
More than 8 out of 10. Chances are that's you. Just think about that. 4/5 of all American, more than 4/5 of all American workers. And what that means is when you go, now we got rid of it, Gretchen Carlson and I got rid of it for sexual misconduct, for sexual assault and sexual harassment. But if you are bound by forced arbitration, that means that if you are discriminated against based on gender or race or religion or disability or ethnicity, I mean, name it, anything other than sexual misconduct,
Right.
you go to HR because that's where you're told to go, right? Your boss calls you the N-word and you're like, whoa, okay, I'm going to go to HR and I'm going to complain about this. This is what HR does. They look at your contract, and it's not necessarily even a contract. You could click on an email from your boss not understanding what you're clicking on, and you've just agreed to forced arbitration. That has happened. And you go to your boss, to HR, and they say, oh, okay, you know what? You have an arbitration clause in your contract, but don't worry about it. We're going to settle this quietly. Nobody's going to know about this. We're going to pay for it. We're going to let you choose the arbitrator. Here's a list of arbitrators we could work with. Go ahead and choose one. You don't realize that these arbitrators that they're giving you are people that have gone to this company for repeat business. It is an incredible, about $2,000 an hour that these arbitrators charge in places like New York. So it's an incredibly lucrative gig. And they know that if they rule on behalf of the company, they'll continue to be hired to do this for the company. And that's why, of all cases that can go to arbitration, of the 60 million people who are bound by arbitration, of any of those people, any of those cases that can go to arbitration, only 2% do. And the reason for that is because of that 2%, only 2.5% result in any kind of financial compensation for the complainant. It's not worth it.
Right.
So
at the end of the day, unless you have some other end goal, which some people do, that has nothing to do with money.
But there is no end goal because it is a secret chamber. Nobody knows about it. It's not like you're going to open court. And what that means,
and these things don't go public, right? It's not in.
No, it's all private.
Right.
It never goes public. So you just don't know. You just disappear. And the number of women I worked with at Fox News who were really, there's my dog, who were really high profile, super high profile. And one day they were just gone. And you'd ask, you're like, where did so-and-so go? And the answer was always like, oh yeah, her contract didn't get renewed because the ratings weren't that good. And she really wasn't that good on air.
Sure.
And you're like, oh, okay, well, that's a shame because you had no clue. And then what ends up happening? You come to find out that belatedly after the New York Times blew the whistle, that these women had accused Bill O'Reilly, for example, of sexual misconduct. And they were just given an arbitration, they were all bound by arbitration. They went into the secret chamber and that was it. That was it. Never to be heard from again. Never worked in TV again. None of them. And these people, some of them were the biggest stars of the network. And we got rid of it for sexual misconduct, as I said, but not for everything else. So we now have a bill in Congress to get rid of it for age discrimination. That's unfortunately the next thing Republicans would agree to tackle. I'm going to call out some people you'd be surprised about. The biggest champion of this legislation, of getting rid of it, of forced arbitration for anything, but especially.
Can I guess? Is it a senator?
Yes, it is.
Lindsey Graham.
Sponsor of our legislation. He was fantastic. Chuck Grassley, fantastic on forced arbitration for.
I've heard that there are Republicans who are, which is very surprising to me, very cooperative in this kind of legislation and whistleblower stuff too. Like they are very helpful, and I find this to be so surprising because
you know what? It's the trial lawyers. It's the guys who worked as trial lawyers. So, by the way, trial lawyers love this legislation because then you can actually sue in court.
Right.
But interestingly, when I went to try to file my lawsuit against Fox News, I went to the same lawyers that Gretchen Carlson used, and they knew obviously what Roger Ailes had done.
Right.
And
they knew who they were doing.
The first question they asked me was, "Do you have an arbitration clause in your contract?" And I said, "I actually don't know." And they said, "Because if you do, we're not taking your case." And I said, "What do you mean?" I had no idea what arbitration was, and they said, "Not because we don't believe you, we do, but the odds of you succeeding are so minuscule, it's not even worth it for us." And luckily, Fox forgot to put an arbitration clause in my contract. The only reason anybody knows what happened, because I sued.
Right.
But I was one of the very, very, very few people who did not have an arbitration clause in her contract. Otherwise, you would have been like, "What happened to her? She used to be on the 5, outnumbered." Why
which is just right. Which again, you think about how many women are put underground after they come forward and say anything. And this goes back to the Harvey Weinstein, the actresses. Whatever happened to her?
Oh, whatever happened?
Whatever happened to that girl? Oh, I loved her in that movie, and I never saw her again. Right.
And DAs. I mean, Zelda Perkins, who was Harvey Weinstein's assistant, who I did this podcast with today, or this webinar with today, was a fantastic person. I don't know if anybody ever watched the movie She Said. I did not, but I read.
I didn't. I have it on my Apple TV. I have yet.
Yeah, I read the book, but Zelda is a big character in that movie and in that book. She had an NDA. She was all of 23 or 24. She literally moved to South America to raise horses for a decade, if not longer, because she was so scared. She couldn't say anything. She couldn't tell people what happened. She just checked out. Literally left the United Kingdom and moved to South America.
It's so infuriating. It's so infuriating. And again, it doesn't matter. I mean, this is where men are just like, well, these women, they say, oh, these cancel culture and this. I'm like, okay, what men are being canceled? Who's canceling anybody? Louis C.K. Okay. First of all, those rumors about Louis C.K. were going on forever. I heard stuff about him for years because I knew a lot of stand-up comedians, and I would hear the story about what Louis C.K. would corner women in the the green rooms or backstage at comedy clubs and do what he did. And I remember people being very, in my friend circle, being very coming to his defense, you don't know that stuff's been discredited. I'm like, discredited by whom? And then it comes out. But you know what? Then Louis C.K. comes out and he's angrier than ever. He's got a chip on his shoulder now. And now there's this whole kind of culture within stand-up comedy, especially with men, that they are very misogynistic. And it comes from this anger about women coming forward, anger about having to be held accountable for their actions or their words, quite frankly.
Let me just say this. It's super simple. Because I have a son and I have a husband and I love them both. And I certainly would never want anybody to be accused.
Sure. Who does?
Right. But let me just say this as somebody who came forward in a very, very, very public way.
Yeah.
Once in my lawsuit against Ailes, and then the Murphy thing was happening. I didn't come out. I didn't do anything. All I did was complain and try to make it better for younger women. Nothing was, it is really hard. I just want people to understand, you don't do this for fun. It is really hard. Awful.
And the vast majority of people who have these things happen to them, on all different, on the spectrum of, all different kinds of abuse and harassment and assault, the vast majority of people do not come forward. And I'm reading here again in the Substack, no wonder women stay quiet. Jeffrey Toobin is back on mainstream media. Louis,
I was just on with him on CNN. Yeah.
Louis C.K. is back doing comedy to sold out shows. Monique says this. I mean, yeah. And here we are.
I will say this. We have come a very long way in the last 10 years. I don't want to leave people sad or angry.
No, of course.
I want to just say this. Things are exponentially better since 2017 when I came forward. Exponentially. Not just because we changed laws, but because we changed culture.
That's hopeful.
I do not think that what happened to me with Phil Murphy would be happening right now. I don't think anybody would stand for it because we changed culture. I don't want people to think that if they come forward that their life is going to be destroyed. I am evidence of that. I have been, it took a while, but talk about making lemonade out of lemons.
Yeah.
And when you sit with members of Congress and you try to pass this legislation on both sides of the aisle and you tell them what happened and their mouths just drop. And sometimes the people in their very same offices are complaining about their behavior and you kind of laugh and you think, okay, your mouth is dropping, but but it doesn't matter because the reality is, it does matter, of course, but the point is the shock value that these stories bring now are so strong, is so strong that it just culture. We're changing culture, and we always say, Gretchen Carlson, I always say, as hard as it is to change laws, the most hyper partisan time of our lives, it's that much harder to change culture.
Absolutely, but I think it's in cases like this. It's often, there's always a backlash. That's the thing too. It's like women came forward of Me Too, and then there's been a backlash. So it's like you take 3 steps forward, you take 2 back. And there is a book called Backlash.
But Susan Faludi, but you're still 1 step forward.
Yeah. And Susan Faluti's book, Backlash, I highly, highly, highly recommend people to read it. It goes through history with women making gains in culture and society, and like what society's answer has been to those gains and steps forward, and how, some of it I didn't even realize. I was like, oh my God, but it's so true. And it happens over and over and over and over again. And it's happening again. Donald Trump was part of it. And Donald Trump again has been part of it. And, that's why it's so important. And that's why, Julie and myself, and Tara, Jojo, the 4 of us have become very good friends in this, doing our shows together, because a rising tide lifts all boats, and we all have to stick together because we have to. And this is where we need male allies in this fight.
Yeah, men, we need you.
So important. So important.
And I will just end with this, and then we got to go because it's pretty late here.
It is, but did you want to talk about the other thing?
I'm trying to remember what the other thing is. Hunter, yes. Can we talk about Hunter for a second? Hunter Biden.
We kind of have to. I feel like we have to at least address it
for 1 second. We got to talk about Hunter Biden.
Okay, I can't remember. I pulled 2 clips and I didn't label them. Yeah, I don't know which one it is. So
reason, the intelligentsia of the Democratic Party, with 2020 hindsight, believes that Joe Biden should have considered not running again because of their perception that he was too old. And so then the drumbeat began. And the New York Post the New York Times, on a near daily basis, egged on by the Pod Save America saviors of the Democratic Party, with 4 white millionaires that are dining out on their association with with Barack Obama from 16 years ago, living in Beverly fucking Hills, telling the rest of the world what black voters in South Carolina really want, or what the women in the waitress living outside of Green Bay, Wisconsin really believes. I mean, what the fuck? I mean, I can't believe that we do this over and over again.
Yeah.
Or I hear Rahm Emanuel is going to run for president. What a fucking, David Axelrod's going to run his campaign for him. That's like, oh boy, there's the answer. There's the fucking answer. Genius is all. You know, all of the things that they want. You remember this, is that everybody talks about Joe Biden now as if he was somehow the choice of the Democratic Party. Bullshit. We lost Iowa. We lost New Hampshire. We came in second in Nevada. David Plouffe.
So this is one of the longer clip. I just want to play the other one that's shorter.
But fuck him. Fuck him. Fuck him and everybody around him. I don't have to be fucking nice. Number one, I agree with Quentin Tarantino. Fucking George Clooney is not a fucking actor. He is a fucking, I don't know what he is. He's a brand. And by the way, and God bless him. You know what? He supposedly treats his friends really well. You know what I mean? Buys them things. And he's got a really great place in Lake Como. And he's great friends with Barack Obama. Fuck you. What do you have to do with fucking anything? Why do I have to fucking listen to you? What right do you have to step on a man who's given 52 years of his fucking life to the service of this country and decide that you, George Clooney, are going to take out basically a full-page ad in the fucking New York Times to me and James Carville, who hasn't run a race in 40 fucking years, and David Axelrod, who had one success in his political life, and that was Barack Obama, and that was because of Barack Obama, not because of fucking David Axelrod, and David Plouffe, and all of these guys and the Pod Save America guys who were junior fucking speechwriters in, on Barack Obama's Senate staff, who have been dining out on the relationship with him for years, making millions of dollars. The Anita Dunns of the world, who's made 40, 50 million dollars off the Democratic Party. They're all going to insert their judgment over a man who has figured out, unlike anybody else, how to get elected to the United States Senate over 7 times, how to pass more legislation than any president in history, how to have a better midterm election than anybody in history, and how to garner more votes than any president that has ever run, and they're going to replace their judgment for his.
Not to mention,
Who's Jake Tapper's audience? Jake Tapper,
my mom or something. I don't know.
well, I don't know.
Yeah.
For real though, I don't even think it's your mom anymore.
No,
because
no.
by the numbers, what influence does Jake Tapper have over anything? He has the smallest audience on cable news, and beyond that, I think that the book is right now on Amazon that he put out. I mean, his ratings just went to shit after he put the book out. You know, they did a 2-week infomercial for it. I mean, it was such a money grab, such a disservice to everybody that he serves with. That the journal.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay. Let me just say this about Hunter before we go. First
I
of all,
don't know what's going on with my computer. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Let's just say, can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let me just say this.
Yeah.
We need somebody who speaks truth to power like that. I don't even mean going after these particular people because that's whatever. But what we need is somebody who is authentic, who does not have Hunter's baggage, who does not have Joe Biden's age, but somebody who just calls it like he sees it. And the problem here is that we have politicians who are constantly parsing every single word, and they're totally terrified of their own shadow. And that's how you speak. And by the way, I don't really care that he curses a lot, because in your own head, you know you're cursing every time you're seeing what's going on right now. So why are we pretending this is not how we all think? So why not just say it?
Listen, when I heard it, first of all, I'm like, okay, Mag is going to go about this. But I don't really care because you know what? I was like, where's the lies? I mean, people are going to be, you know, people are in the, you know, comments being like, you know, F off Hunter or whatever. But I'm like, I don't know. I kind of agree with everything he has to say. You know, I think that there's a lot of Beltway consultant nonsense that's been going on for way too long in the Democratic Party and has done nothing but bring us down. And people who are out of touch with the average American.
By the way, this is how average Americans, I don't know if this is how they speak, but that's how they think.
Mm-hmm.
And there's another clip, which I know we're not going to play tonight, but there's another clip of him talking about what the cost is of deporting all of these people that Trump is deporting.
Right.
And he's dropping the F-bomb every other word. And the truth of the matter is, when I think about those people and I think about what's happening to them, I drop the F-bomb in my head all the time. So I don't really mind that he's out there saying it out loud because I'm saying it in my head. And why not? He speaks for me when it comes to that.
Yeah.
So the point is, you know, and by the way, BJG, you're absolutely right. Who cares what MAGA has to say? Because they weren't attacked. Look, they're going after Hillary Clinton on the emails. They're going after Barack Obama on the Russia.
They're deep in conspiracy theory land about Tulsi Gabbard releasing something about Barack Obama. I mean, these people. I mean, it doesn't matter what you do, what you say. They're always going to say,
Unleash Hunter on Harvey Epstein. Whoops. On Jeffrey Epstein. Have Hunter to sit down and talk about Jeffrey Epstein because that'll get attention, and he will have been right.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, all right, it's 9:00 here on the East Coast, which is very late for me because I have to go to sleep because I'm really lame and I go to bed very early. So it was so good to see you, Michelle. I'm so sorry about
you too. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. All of a sudden, my computer started freaking out. I need a new computer so badly because I do so much work on this and so much editing, and like I have a million videos on here, and I think that it's about to give up on me. So, yeah, not good, not great. We're gonna have to get an Apple Card and put it on there and finance that shit. So. Laptops are so expensive. Anyways, thanks to everybody for tuning in. Thank you to everyone who is on Substack tuning in. I see all of you. Thank you so much. And yes, we are not, we have not been streaming this to the usual places. We have been streaming this to the Mayday Network I think it's at the Mayday Network on YouTube because I can't really say, but
Follow Mayday Network on YouTube. We'll just say that.
Yeah, follow the Mayday Network on YouTube. You will find all the stuff that we do there, regardless. But stay tuned because we'll have more things to report and announce to you about that. So if you can, it would be so kind of you to like and subscribe at the Mayday Network on YouTube, and we'll always be there.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.